I've been working on a new project. I call it the Ensley Project. I call it the Ensley Room, matter of fact. I study history as a pastime. Matter of fact, I've been studying the black economic conditions in Birmingham for almost 15 years now. I have started by hanging up every article, press release, framework plan, whatever the city has published or whatever's been in the newspaper over the last 10 or 15 years. So far, I have about 120 different items that I have put up for Ensley. Eventually, I'm going to add my other collection. I have another collection that shows the economic conditions going back to the 1880s for the black community here. So one of the things I do, I go and I find the microfilm. I go find the old books. I go find the old pamphlets. But today I'm just focusing on the last 10 or 15 years of articles, and I know I'm well over 120 of those right now. It is obvious that this community has been mistreated and deceived for a long time. I'm thankful for the many who have given their best to improve this community. I'm proud of those who have led the Ensley Merchants Association before I arrived and even after I arrived. I'm proud of those who still continue to push forward with the Ensley Business Alliance over the years. I'm super proud of the young professionals that are leading the Flourish. It's a non-profit program that's leasing one of the spaces that I have, and they're dedicated to the arts. These young men and women have invested their resources and time in an extremely deprived Ensley community before the community has had a fair chance to heal and improve itself. But after I started putting all these articles up, I had to say to myself, when does a community get tired of being lied to? I realized that it is much easier to talk about the distressed, depressed, impoverished conditions and the crime that has become too common than to actually do something about it.
Come on! Come on, Pat!
It is much easier to have an opinion of the persons on the front line, sacrificing and taking the initiative to make their difference. I've lost many friends and associates on this journey. I'm okay with that, as I have to stay on my path. Death by homicide and many of our street crimes can be altered. We have to invest in human and workforce development. We have to give the residents a chance to improve their livelihood. We must create industry here. We must build up skills here. We must build up our youth. We must invest in our adults. We must create more income for the families. We must do our best. When I came here, I had one desire, and that was to improve my community. I had no idea how many black and white leaders would do everything possible to crush my dreams. My dream was to improve my community, and it didn't matter if the opposition on the other side was of the same race or another race. It didn't matter, because I must fight for my dream, and that's to improve my community. Many black people will not understand this, and I'm okay with it. If my black leader who is in position to open the doors of opportunity chooses black on black oppression instead, then I'm going to do all I can legally to remove the structural barrier that is injuring my community.
Next item will be a presentation from the city's federal lobbying team. At this time, we will give them the floor.
So, is everybody kind of familiar in general with opportunity zones and what the program means and the opportunity that it presents to the city?
I understand. Yes, but pretend like we don't know anything.
Okay. Opportunity zones were designated last year, so the bill passed in December of 17, and then I think governors had from January 1st to March 15th of 18 to designate their opportunity zones. And props to the mayor and his economic development team, because they were very aggressive in designating the areas of the city, requesting that the governor designate the areas of the city that needed it most to be opportunity zones. We got some airport stuff in there. We got all of the low-income areas of the city for the most part. We got historic districts in there. They were really good, but the one area we did not get was Ensley. Pretty much got everything else that we wanted except for Ensley.
And I appreciate that. But let me say this. I just before I came in this meeting, I had a citizen walk up to me and said that she wanted to buy a building downtown Ensley. And she wanted to know from me, why was it left out? And I could not explain it to her because I'm still baffled
There's one answer.
about why.
The governor denied it.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
did she deny? It was on the list and she denied it?
Yes, sir.
Oh, the mayor requested it. Yes, sir. Very much so. It's kind of inexplicable as well.
Was it because it was a time lapse?
No, sir.
No,
It
sir.
came after the original list went in? Was it on
No,
the
sir.
original list?
It was on the original list. Yes,
I
sir.
wonder why would she single out Ensley?
It's not clear.
That's a question I would love to ask her.
Yes, you
I
should.
mean, out of
you should-
all
you
these
should
communities
ask
around here, Ensley would be looked over.
This was the day that everything changed. I call this the meeting. This took place October 13th, 2019. Mayor Woodfin, the Economic Development Director, the City Councilor, 2 City Council assistants, and 3 of my neighbors all meet me in my buildings to discuss the Ramsey McCormick development, to discuss Ensley High School, also to talk about federal opportunity zones a little bit. But then we also talked about my appraisal. It seemed that my appraisal was the most frustrating thing to the mayor. I remember thinking to myself at the end of the meeting, I said, what just happened in that meeting? I said, why was the mayor so angry and why was he so mad about my appraisal, about me trying to seek help and bringing attention to the $0 appraisal? And it was probably the next day when I said, I'm going to download everything I can to see if there's a connection between my bank and the mayor. It took me 10 or 11 months to find the first connection. Unfortunately, I found other connections, and they are all part of the Brian K. Rice versus Governor K. Ivey lawsuit. And they're also a part of the Brian K. Rice versus Rachel Riddle lawsuit. The current black leaders in Birmingham are on my watch. And my dad and my mom raised me to do my part in my community. It's not easy investing in a place like Ensley. It's like many of our inner cities. Everyone has an opinion, but the reality is that most are non-factors because they are nowhere near taking any initiative to improve the conditions. When I first invested here, I had many supporters. I shared my dream and the supporters grew. My political enemies grew too, but I didn't know it at the time. When the $0 appraisal came, my supporters became curious. When I discovered that several in the black leadership class were involved, and many of them were my friends or former friends, and many of my supporters, peers, and former friends cut me off because of it. When I stood up for my rights, the supporters went silent. A few snakes stayed around to report back, and when I realized they were snakes, I cut them off. I remember when the supporters seemed like many. I remember when they all went silent. It is not easy investing here. I do not wish my experiences on anyone. A $0 appraisal shouldn't happen to any American. into anyone. I went to the State Appraisal Regulatory Board and they looked the other way. I went to the Federal Reserve Board of Governors for the banking actions and they looked the other way. I filed complaints with other entities and they looked the other way. So essentially both the state and federal entities approved the omission of 100% of my rental income and 100% of my building values. Once that happened, I had no ability to properly develop my properties. I attempted to protest my property taxes, and the black lady over the Board of Equalization removed my right to protest my property taxes based on a certified appraisal. So now I'm being taxed on properties where I can't get any value out of it. Everyone knows it is wrong, but it appears that no one in leadership wants to stand up and do the right thing. So I have to continue my fight. Now, all I wanted to do was improve my community. When I got locked out, the families I could have supported were locked out. When you lock out the property owner from fair resources, then the owner cannot develop their space. And if they cannot develop their space, there is no place for a new business in the community to go to. If there is no place for a new business to go, then there are no new jobs. If there are no new jobs, then there are no new families being supported. If there are no new families being supported, then the youth of that family are not supported. If numerous residents of the community are locked out, then our community is going to be deprived, and then we create the breeding ground for whatever comes out of deprivation. Do it for a year, and that is one thing. Do it for a lifetime, that is another. Do it for generations, then we have an answer. We must improve the environment. We must invest